And ladies and gentlemen, that also brings us to move towards our first panel discussion for this evening. Now, for this panel discussion, we are going to reflect on a very important topic which is related to the challenges that are associated in the two-wheeler segment and how we can move towards electrifying mobility in this segment. Now, our first power panel constitutes of noted names like Mr. Aniruddha Haldar, Senior Vice President Marketing, TVS Motor Company. We would also have Mr. Bipul Chandra, Managing Director, Ducati India, Mr. Ankit Raj, Dealer Principal, Saraswati Motors, Allahabad, and Mr. Dilip Chenoy, former Secretary General of FICCI. As we wait for all our panelists to come up on stage, I would also like to tell you that for this panel discussion, some of the main points that we are going to be focusing upon include workshop viability, tepid demand, sub-dealer margin, 21 days inventory, and over-dealerization. These are some of the topics that we will be touching upon during this hour-long panel discussion. We're running slightly behind the schedule, but trying to make it as quick as possible. All our panelists are here with us, and we are going to request them to soon take up the seats here on the stage. In this panel, we have, like I mentioned, Mr. Aniruddha Haldar, Senior Vice President, Marketing, TVS Motor Company. And of course, he leads the scooter, commuter, motorcycle, and utility business segments. In addition to being the corporate brand custodian, he also holds the responsibilities for marketing for the new EV segment, media planning and buying and dealership transformation. Amongst other panelists, in this particular session, we also have Mr. Bipul Chandra, Managing Director of Ducati India. He, of course, joined the company back in 2019 as the sales director and was promoted to the current role at the beginning of 2020, right when we were all dealing with the pandemic. And he will be one of the speakers in this session. Requesting you all to please join us on the stage. Take your seats as I'm going to request Mr. Dilip Chenoy to really help us in moderating this session and take it forward, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening to everybody. We have a very interesting session here. Many of you in the room are dealers, so this is really looking at the challenge of the two-wheeler space in terms of OEs and dealerships. The panel has been introduced. There are a lot of issues. Rather than me highlighting what some of the issues and challenges are, the way I've actually discussed with the panelists here and looking at, I'll just request each one to make an opening statement about 3 to 5 minutes of, what are the challenges as they see it here, and then we'll get into a discussion and cover some of the topics that were mentioned. So I think since we are in the FADA thing, let's give the opportunity to the dealership to actually start. What are some of the challenges you face, and how do we actually look at it?
Good evening, all. As a representation of dealers, it is on a hard note that I represent dealers, to be honest. But certainly, yes, going forward. The segment of two-wheelers, to be honest, from the last pandemic, I guess, from the last pandemic and to the 2.5 and 3 years which are going on in the two-wheeler sector. If you talk about the IC engines and the EVs portfolio, there has been a dumpy road altogether. Bumps are there. We are on degrowth. And the way forward, the way the government is reacting and the manner how the OEMs are dealing, yes, it is difficult. And going forward, there are challenges when we talk about the profitability front. First of all, this is a major outburst of any dealer running across the two-wheeler, because ultimately each and every profit which is driven at the dealership level is driven by the volumes which we get. And every dealer, when we compare it from the pre-COVID level to the current scenario at around 20 to 30, 40, they're already on a very degrowth manner. So yes, the road looks a bit bumpy. Going forward, way forward, there are challenges like coming into electric. Along with electric, the norms which are being changing, the rapid norms being changing. We're talking about BS7 coming in, the cost of goods increasing at a very rapid manner. Yes, there are challenges which are going to hurdle us in the coming way. But going forward, I would like to hear from what our dear OEMs say, and look forward to hear from them.
Thank you, Ankit. And let me see. We have two different segments of the OEs here. One is a high-end market like Ducati, and the other is a mass market. But they also have high-end products themselves in their stable through their joint venture groups. But Bipul, I mean, how do you actually see the market? I'm sure you're not facing degrowth. So, how do you see it, and how do you see the challenges ahead, and what are some of the things that you like to the dealers to actually address for you?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Before I come to the point raised by Mr. Chenoy, I'll take one more moment. See, more than 2 decades ago, when I started my automobile journey, any such association was supposed to be evil. Then, after some maturity, I thought it's necessary evil. And after much graying of hairs, I think this kind of association is necessary. So kudos to FADA for this kind of meeting and this kind of together kind of thinking. And with this, probably I'll take my thoughts forward. As you have rightly mentioned, high-end two-wheelers are actually not facing any kind of degrowth, per se demand-wise. But we have a different set of challenges, and that is the supply side. In fact, I have my own Ducati Delhi dealers sitting in the room, and every day we fight obviously on a friendly note, that probably one of those happy situations where they keep on asking for bikes and I don't have the bikes to give. So my challenge lies more into global scenario, because we don't have any factory in India. We have our factories in Italy and Thailand. So whatever happens in the world, it impacts us directly. So whether the much maligned or much talked about chip problem, the any other related component issue, the logistics issue, in fact, you will not believe, but on a lighter note, every time I open my laptop, the marinetraffic.com is open in my laptop, because I keep on tracking my ships. And when I look at the congested ports, it's amazing kind of situation. You won't believe one of my ships is on the way, and it is taking 4 days from Karachi to Bombay. Karachi to Bombay, you can walk in 4 days probably. And the ship is taking 4 days. So my challenges are very different. As far as demand is concerned, I think post-COVID, and probably that's not a very good thing to say, but post-COVID, people have started living life on their own terms, rather than living at the society's whims and fancies, what people would say. So I think we have moved beyond that kind of situation, and the riders, they have come back to us in a big, big way. The demand for high-end bikes has become very high. That's a happy situation for all of us, both ways, because I'm getting to sell more, my dealerships are getting to sell more and service more. However, the socio-economic positive thing is getting marred by the global challenges, and we are looking at various situations, how we can make the supply side better. So I think in today's time, more than the dealership willingness, more than the finance situation, more than the customer's acceptance, it is the problem at my end, and let me accept it openly, that I'm not able to supply or I'm not able to fulfill the Indian customers. And this is true for all the high-end bikes. It is not only Ducati's problem. So my challenge is on a very different note, which I think probably some of the bikes of TVS would be facing, not all. But yes, this is something which we are also working on, and probably dealers of all the different brands who handle this kind of bike, this segment of bike, I'm sure you will empathize with me, and together we can find some solution to it.
So, Bipul, just a clarification question for the audience here is that are your sales volume greater than 2018, 2019? Are you growing year on year? What is it that you're actually looking at?
In fact, I would say 2018, 2019, 2020, all the years were lesser than 2021. And even with this kind of highly constrained supply, I am thinking positively that 22 would be better than 21.
Thanks. I just wanted that out, because everyone has been talking about degrowth, right? And that brings me to a mass market there. You have another mass market person in the next panel there. But really, Aniruddha, how do you see the demand situation, and are all your models facing degrowth? There are some doing better, not better, not necessarily the high-end ones, but the others. How do you see the market, and what are your projections here?
So thanks for the question. Very all good evening to all of you. I think just before we start, the fact that this is the first two-wheeler conclave, congratulations to FADA and all of us for being here. Interestingly, I was asked to be part of the challenges portion of it, and I see all the EV players to be in the opportunities portion of it. Just want to call out that we are also very much in the EVs part. So I see a lot of opportunities in the challenges, and we'll partake of both. We'll face the challenges with you, and we'll also reap the opportunities with you. But congratulations to FADA for doing this. In terms of the forecast ahead of us, what has really affected all of us in the recent times? There has been a certain amount of demand issue. There is the supply issue. The supply issue comes, like you said, from the semiconductors and availability of logistics. And that to an extent, whether it is within the purview of this group, I doubt it. But then let's come to the first one, which is in terms of demand. That is getting severely impacted because also of the kind of price increases that have happened. And those price increases have happened because of the fact of the kind of super cycle of commodities that we have seen in the recent 2 to 3 years. COVID was one big impact, and after that has been the raw material cost. Along with that, regulatory, safety, and other reasons for which the actual price of purchase for the consumer has gone up. Now, in no environment has disposable income gone up by 50% in the way that the prices of two-wheelers have gone up. So there is an impact on the demand scenario. But in this environment, I think we need to collectively, as the OEM and the dealer partner, reimagine our presence and our service to the consumer. And in that, what are the solutions that we can co-create are going to be a path out of these challenges. Bulk of these challenges, whether it is commodity prices, semiconductor availability, or logistics, are lying outside the purview of those sitting in this room. But we need to together combat it. You grow, I grow, you grow. There is no other way that we can go around this. And to that, I'm thankful for FADA and to all my channel partners for the kind of support that we have seen and the willingness to try out new things that we have seen over the last 3 years. It's been difficult times, but there have been a lot of innovation that have come in. And maybe we'll talk about some of that later in the day.
So thank you, Aniruddha, for that, and just take you up on that. One of the things, and she mentioned it there, is while the OEs and the two-wheeler space is very typical, while the OEs actually have a price increase to cover their cost increases, the dealerships also have a cost increase. But unfortunately, in many of the two-wheeler segments, the commission or something, whatever it is, per bike, is a fixed rate. It's not linked to a percentage of sales, right? So how in that thing do you expect the dealers to actually, go out and really support you and to grow? So how can you look at this in the future? I know, Vipul, you have a different take on it. I'll come to you after Aniruddha.
So let me first say that at TVS, that is not our approach. We have a percentage-based structure, so every increase that we take, we immediately passes through. That is first. Second is that, and those who have alternate measures, I'm sure they will examine it and
Is it across all models or only select models?
Across about 95% of our supplies, it will be a percentage-based model. We may express it in rupee terms, but as we take prices up, that moves along. In terms of the recent price increases, we have been mindful of the kind of price increases we can pass on. And not all raw material cost increases or other cost increases have been passed through to the consumer. There has been a certain amount of absorption that's happened at the OEM level. Now, even in spite of that, we are seeing the kind of impact that we are seeing. But having said that, what are the other things that we can do to help in this environment for dealer profitability? In that, I'm happy to say that we have been working for the last 3 years, right from the time the COVID came in terms of ensuring that we have right stocking and we have removed the entire practice of credit-based or company-extended credit. That has ensured that our practices in terms of stocking are far more leaner, far more market-oriented. Second, we have been working very, very actively to ensure profitability through just the service and spares. And across our dealer and sub-dealer network, 68 and 69% respectively are profitable just on the basis of the service revenue alone. And the balance 30% is also something that we are working very closely with. How are we able to add value in that? One is in terms of improving service operations and what we can do to improve productivity there. The second is layering on technology in terms of being able to get appointment-based booking. Because we also realize that appointment-based bookings have a much greater ticket value in service than people who walk in. And that is also helping us improve this. So multiple levels of interventions, but which are focused to consumer service-led dealer profitability. And not only from, so the price margin is protected, but a host of other actions, because that's not the extent of the problem, host of other actions to also improve productivity.
Thank you. Bipul, would you like to add something to that?
Yes. In case of Ducati, as Mr. Chenoy has said that we work on a fixed percentage basis. So every time I take a rise or a hit, let us say, it will impact my dealer directly. So whatever, there is a percentage to every bike through which they get their dealer margin. So that's one part of the profit stream. In case of our business, we take the associate business also very, very seriously. Now, by associate, I mean not only the workshop, but the sales item other than bikes. Now, we are a very big seller of apparels and accessories as well. I'm not trying to advertise, but yes, in a way. If you, and I'll request all of you, I'll invite all of you to visit my Ducati Delhi showroom in Arena. You will be pleasantly surprised to look at the collection of t-shirts and shoes and jeans and everything, caps, key rings, whatnot. They have amazing stuff which Ducati supplies, and this is a very, very important part of our business. So apparels and accessories, what we say as a CAS, commercial after sales. So commercial after sales is a very important revenue stream for us in addition to the bike sales. Then coming to the workshop side, we take equally seriously the extended warranty and RSA kind of business, which ensures that the customer is bound to the dealership for further coming years. Other than the 2 years of standard warranty, the customer is there for another years. So these are some of the activities which not only Ducati pursues as a OEM, but all our dealerships, they also pursue this very seriously. On a lighter note, in fact, today we are in a situation where discounting is not so serious in our business. Even if certain dealership customer requests the dealership for a discount, then we prefer to give store credit or cash credit rather than giving cash discount. So in a way that handles the situation also very positively for our dealerships. You are not shelling out cash, but you are selling or giving a discount on the cash itself, which is our apparels and accessories. So I believe these are some of the issues which our dealerships take very seriously, and we are very happy, we are very positive with the dealerships that they understand this kind of business situation, and we move in this direction. So that's a pretty good thing for our profitability of the dealerships.
Okay, so Ankit, when this panel was being introduced, one of the challenges that they talked about was, it's a challenge because some numbers are declining. The number of dealerships actually were catering to a higher number. You have the sub-dealers. What is the issue and challenge that you are actually facing, and what is it that you like the OEs to actually do?
I think, Dilip, I think first of all you put into some light about the margin stuff. So our friends are sitting around. You told about the margin stuff, and our dear friends were face 5% of the portion on the margin stuff and 95% on the portion on the add-on stuff. So what I see that in the last 2.5 years, there's an increase of product value from around 35 to 40%. Like a motorcycle which costs around 50,000 in a BS4 scenario is costing around maybe 75,000, 70,000, which is approx 35 to 40%. When we correlate the cost scenario, undoubtedly it is increasing. The OEMs are putting any day burden on the consumer. Yes, it is true. The steel cost is increasing, semiconductor issues are increasing. But same parallelly, our dealership costs are also increasing. See, our core business and core area of business is sales. And we are here to sell the motorcycle or a scooter. So a major margin comes from that portion. If we talk about the merchandise, we talk about the add-on things, we talk about the EW, extended warranty things, that is the second thing. But the way the cost is increasing, yeah, although you're talking about the friends sitting here, but all the OEMs should really think forward to put a standardized percentage increase with the percentage increase of cost. Coming into the prospect of two-wheeler scenario currently, yes, what I see as a consumer coming into our dealership, like consumer of our dealership in terms of masses, if we talk about not in particular to Ducati and the high-end segment, but if he or she is coming into our dealership, he thinks about purchasing a bike at a X amount. But we are seeing that around it has been 4 to 5 times in the last 2 years that the prices has increased. So it lays a deep thought process in terms of consumer mindset, that when his mindset is clear for purchasing a bike, for example, for a 75,000, then after 3 months, when he comes back to the dealership, we see that the price hike of that the same price bike is around 78,000. So the consumer is also very much confused, to be honest, that what is the exact price, and the hike ultimately creates chaos in terms of the mindset of the consumer. And in that sense, dealership have to survive, and being surrounded by many dealers amongst the OEMs. So then there comes a point of discounting. So discounting is also a major factor which a dealer faces. So again, the impact raises on the profitability front. So here the OEM should really take this forward, and not only with the margin stuff and but the discounting also. So how to lay these things, I think the OEM should react on this. That would be better for them to answer.
No, I think Aniruddha wants to jump in there and say something. Aniruddha, over to you.
No, I think the pain is very real, right? So when you talk about a consumer being in that front, completely with you. I don't think any of us have seen the way fuel prices have gone up or commodity prices have gone up. None of us have seen this before ever. And we exist in a common society. It's not that it is happening to the automotive industry alone as a slice. We had a few of those as well. We had fair set of increases we saw which were, industry specific. But now what we are seeing over the last 2 years is not industry specific. It is commodity led. It is inflation led. So that the consumer is seeing in many different parts of his life. Yes, there has been more frequent. I think the fact that the OEMs and the dealers are working together in a very fast-paced manner, in the sense that every quarter this is being reviewed. It's not a provisional increase which is being taken for the year, but as much as possible it is being managed. I think it will have to be a hold each other's hand and walk through it. Now, when you come to the other part, which is, let's say, about discounting, and I think this is a learning curve and a maturity. And I would say that in the past there have been, things that we have dealt with at TUSM with channel partners, where you've had that internal district. But I think increasingly, and I must give credit to, Delhi has seen an amazing growth from a single-digit market share market for us to being one of our leading markets. And that's largely because we had the right products and excellent channel partners. And that cooperation through that they did, by they work together as a channel partner team, where they realize they have to grow together. Even one very recent episode where, I must express my gratitude to my partners there, that for one of our models, it is the channel partners that came forward and said, listen, we are going to extend a 5-year free service support to this particular model because we believe the product is right and we just need the consumer to walk in. It is not something which was done by one partner, it was done by all of them together. So it doesn't become discounting. It actually becomes market moving. And this was not something that was, asked for, but it was something that came and worked brilliantly. And for that, first of all, thank you, all of you, and you know who you are in the room. Thank you for that. But that is the kind of other action, and that's a maturity of the, the community and to work together. And which is why I'm saying this is something that we need to hold hands through, and it's not going to be easy. The discounting doesn't happen at the instance of the OEM, but the OEM can play a role, and so we are also making it sure that the on-road prices are available on various points of query so that that doesn't become an easy point of differentiation. So information arbitrage will go.
No, so I think, Aniruddha, what you're really saying is that if the dealers, instead of seeing themselves as competitors to each other, actually collaborate. And you're saying collaboration is the next form of competition, and you can grow the market, and you can capture more of the consumer. So that's the message, really, Ankit, for you. I don't know, Bipul, would you like to add something? There are two scenarios. One scenario is where demand is there, and you can't supply and prices are rising. Right? Other thing is that demand is not there, but supply is there and prices are rising. They're two different situations. How would you actually address that?
In fact, your point and probably the point just before this, I think there is a parallel, and I'll go to a totally different word over here. See, the collaboration between the OEM and the dealership is one of the most important part in our business. And equally important is the skill development at the channel partner level. So when the second situation comes in, the demand is not there and the supply is there, then how do you survive? And probably where our understanding of the market, our eagerness to move swiftly into that situation comes into. And that is, in our definition at least, is skill development. How do we read the situation? How do we find creative solutions together? Because as it has been discussed a couple of minutes ago, it's not anyone's job, it is our job. We have to be together in this journey, and rather than finger pointing that you are not doing, because you see, we all have been through this journey for many years, and we know that at some point of time, we have definitely pointed fingers at the other party. No, manufacturer is not doing this and the dealership is not doing that. It has happened. Probably none of us can say it has not happened with us. So that will keep on happening as well. That's part of the journey. That's also true. However, in today's time when we are seeing so many challenges, probably it becomes important that we grow together, we find creative solutions. And again, probably it would become quite a lot of Ducati, but the fact is, we keep on talking very, very regularly on these situations. What will happen, what needs to be done, and in fact, we are so much onto daily solution finding kind of thing that even my local dealership, if they have to find a real life kind of test drive, because Ducati is the only company which gives test drive on the BIC, Buddha circuit, which is the real playground for some of our bikes. So our dealers, they are riders themselves. They understand the customer much better than what we. And I have no qualms in saying that I'll understand my customer lesser than what my dealer understands. And once this clarity comes with the manufacturer, then probably there is a shanti in the system. That my dealer knows what he is doing, what he has to do, and I have to take a step back. So this is how we work probably. And
so coming to that, Ankit, you talked about this whole thing about workshop viability. So what is the issue there, and what would you like the OEMs to actually address? If you can just explain that so that both Vipul and Aniruddha could.
I think the major outcome in today's scenario is that our major volume which we drive through is coming from the secondary networks, and day by day our counter sales are going down when we talk about them in terms of masses. I'm not talking about the premium vehicles in particular, but in terms of masses, our counter sales are decreasing, even though our total number of volumes are increasing, which might increase in the coming years. So, if any consumer who is getting vehicle in his or her doorstep, he would step forward and go to that nearby area, other than traveling 10 to 20 kilometers to our workshops. So the question rises is that even though we are equipped with modern day workshops, modern day equipment which are being given by the OEMs, and we have our team to cater, but as per the convenience of the customer, he or she will of course choose the nearby point, which is again
Okay, so
some competition of our dealership.
So quick 1 minute comments on both of this. Let's see, Aniruddha, do you want to start? So the point, there are 2 points, right? One point he's not mentioned. One is saying that there's a sub dealer and dealer workshop issue, and the second one, which is not talked about, which is actually there, is that like in some of the cases of fixed margins on particular models, you also have frozen the labor costs in the workshop. So while the labor costs are going up, the dealers don't find it profitable to actually do that. So that's the second part of it. Your take on that?
So this is one of the industries in which the relationship with the consumer doesn't end with the sale, but it starts with the sale. And wherein you set up a revenue stream with this entity and you are able to extract value over time by delivering service. Now, if this person is not going to come to the dealership, that chance is lost. But if you are able to offer services that make him come to you, for example, we are in the process of doing a pilot where you are able to see your vehicle getting serviced. You will see it on your phone. He'll come to you. Expert on wheels. He'll come to you. Fixed point drop off, fixed point pick up, so that you can do it in your day of work. These are all initiatives that you can do which will ensure that your service shop becomes his preferred service shop. In addition, finally, आप इस बिजनेस में इसलिए हैं क्योंकि आपको रिटर्न ऑन कैपिटल मिलना चाहिए. आपका सब डीलर आपका कंपटीशन नहीं है, वो आपका फोर्स मल्टीप्लायर है. अगर उस एडिशनल माइलेज से, उस एडिशनल मार्जिन से आपका वेलोसिटी बढ़ता है, आपका रिटर्न ऑन कैपिटल बढ़ता है, क्योंकि उसके लिए उतना आपको कैपिटल नहीं लगाना पड़ता, और आप उसको अपने बिजनेस का एक एक्सटेंडेड आर्म समझे एंड नॉट कि वो आपका कंपटीशन है, तो शायद जिस तरह से आप अपने सब डीलर को देख रहे हैं, जिस तरह से आप अपने बिजनेस मॉडल को डिफाइन कर रहे हैं, वो काफी हद तक चेंज हो जाएगा. एंड इफ दैट हैपेंस, आई थिंक यू विल बी एबल टू लेवरेज अनदर लीवर ऑफ ग्रोथ फॉर all of us collectively. That's one point. I'm sorry, you said a 1 minute this thing. The second part is, अगर लेबर से या सर्विस शॉप से प्रॉफिटेबिलिटी लाना, उसके 2 तरीके हैं. या कंज्यूमर का रेट बढ़ाइए या प्रोडक्टिविटी इंप्रूव करके अपना यील्ड बढ़ाइए, by bringing more people in या by improving the skill set, by improving the way their productivity is managed. आज के दिन में, even through all of these years, year on year, we have managed a 5 to 6% improvement in productivity in every single one of our dealerships. Now you can see it as productivity or you can see it as money, because all of that is more money, better yield. And then when you drive in more traffic, then it becomes, and that is the reason why 70% of our dealers are profitable on service alone. Sorry.
Yeah. Bipul, anything to add?
Since Ducati does not work on a sub-dealer model, so first part goes away for me. But the second part still there, which I will borrow from Ankit ji, that having a very nice infrastructure does not mean that you are spending money. In fact, that is a precursor to get probably more customers into your workshop. Again, I'll take example of my Delhi dealership. The workshop is air conditioned. Now, on one hand, that may look like a cost. Workshop में air conditioning कौन करता है? But then if you look at the kind of customer what we are getting, then probably it becomes the hygiene factor that the customer believes that, okay, I am going to get certain quality of service, so I will not go to another service which is non-Ducati, and I will visit the authorized service center where I know the kind of importance the bike would be given would be unmatched as given in the market. And that becomes, to borrow word from TVS side, that becomes the force multiplier.
Okay, so I like to actually open this up.
I just want to add one thing. I think your second point again is not answered yet, but yes, the thing which our friend Bipul ji talked and Aniruddha ji talked about, I think the major things come upon one thing, that is the ROI factor. The cost which we incur as a dealership, and as a OEM, the cost which we get, both are different chapter altogether. So that is the point I think the OEM should just think about it. I think I just chipped in, so please continue.
Okay. No, I want to open up the floor to any questions from the floor, right? So if anybody would like to ask a question, if there are OEMs in the room would like to ask a question of the Ankit, or you or the dealers want to ask a question of Aniruddha or Bipul, please, this is your time. And I'll give you a few minutes to think about it if you want to ask a specific question, because what we have covered so far, just to recap, so one is that there was this issue about fixed dealer margins. At least the OEs here and say they don't have fixed, they have variable. So when you do a price increase, although TVS did a caveat saying that 95% of the models have a price increase, with the price 5% don't have. Maybe some other OEs don't have it. And the second issue was that on labor costs, I think we heard that they are allowing, seeing that. And on the sub dealers, we should look at it as a force multiplier rather than a competitor. So these were the three things. Demand we've already touched upon. So if there's any, and unfortunately for both the OEs here, there are certain models for both of them which are doing, not necessarily high end in this case, which are doing better than the previous end. So if there are any questions that you would like to ask, this is your time. I've actually done that. Otherwise, I will go back to the panel. Yeah. Please. Is there a mic here? I'm sorry, I didn't warn the. I'm conscious of your time.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Pratik Jain, and I'm two-wheeler dealer for Hero. Most of the OEMs are going lean and thin when their operations are concerned, and they are reducing their operational cost. We would like all the OEMs to help dealers also to become lean and thin in their operations, so that we can cut costs. Presently, our cost is going up every year. So we need help from OEMs, and we want to learn from them. And how can they help us to become lean and thin, so that our profit margins increases? Thank you.
Thank you.
So you're absolutely right, and that is one of our key initiatives that we work. Our service teams are operating not only on skill building, but also workshop operation process. How we can improve the ramp utilization, how we can ensure productivity of your skilled labor, how we can ensure that they're classified and you're able to allocate vehicles properly so that you're able to get better yield out of them. Even in terms of the way the design is being done, the entire design for service module on those are also being beefed up. But most importantly, from a workshop operations perspective, how you can get more out of it, how you can manage your waste, how you can manage your scrap yield, all of that is part of a very structured program that TVS runs with our channel partners to be able to constantly keep reviewing. Now, this is not a one-time thing. I can't come and deliver a model and it's done. It's something that you keep on doing cycle after cycle after cycle, and each time it yields, which is why on a consistent basis we are able to see improvement over it. But you're absolutely right, elimination of waste is a better and a sustainable way for getting return on capital. Completely agree with you.
Mr. Sangi?
So Aniruddha, I think what Pratik was trying to talk about, I'm Nikunj. I think it's about the infrastructure cost. I think we have built Taj Mahals. It's about manpower costs. And as we progress to a distribution model where more than 60% of our retails are taking place through a distribution network and not through main retail counters, I think there is this huge need of reducing manpower cost, of reducing infrastructure costs, reducing inventory costs, which are huge. And unfortunately, there might be exceptions, but unfortunately that's not happening. And it's really hitting below the belt as far as dealerships are concerned and as far as two-wheeler dealerships are concerned. Also, I think we need to realize that nearly 70% of our total retails come from bottom of the pyramid, which are bread and butter models. And that is where the need for, so while workshop profitability we have talked about, I think where our investment goes in is in our infrastructure, in our inventory, and in our manpower. So are we doing something about making that lean and thin?
I think that's an excellent question, and I'll go on this one.
Afterwards, I will say something.
Sure. before COVID hit, quite honestly, I would say TVS also had a practice of extending credit for inventory. It had its benefits and it had some of the drawbacks. But in the course of this period, we completely moved away from that. And today, I think I can say with good authority that across our channel partners, that's been seen as a positive light because the inventory is leaner. Leaner to the extent we are operating at about 30 days. They may be at 32, 33 and some this thing, but they're largely operating at about 30 days. And that is something that we are able to manage actively. So that's the inventory cost part of it. From a people side part of it, we are seeing across the industry one of the largest kinds of mass resignation, people moving off, and hence cost of training, retraining, getting the right kind of people and their cost. Here I would really urge all the dealer partners, are we really doing everything we can for our HR? So we are right now instituting a lot more in terms of the dealer HR practices, but that is one area that we felt that, you know, collectively as an industry we can do better with. I don't think that the frontline staff gets as much attention and care, whether it's in the workshop or in the sales process, and that leads to lower retention. And that also leads to its own set of costs. So that's something that I think we both need to do. I have an answer for you right now on that one? No, I don't. But we are working on it actively, and that is one of our goals, to ensure that the engagement of the frontline staff and attrition costs of the frontline staff should come down. The last piece that I would add, which is the infrastructure cost that you spoke about. I think you are absolutely right that the Taj Mahals are not necessarily the way forward. But there is a certain ambience and this thing that delivers a higher degree of conversion, and seen that. Should it be right sized and this thing? Very actively agree with you. Which is why the way we manage even expansions is taken into account with saying that management width, capital width, and this thing is all kept into account when we go for that. So we have extended a lot of this inventory and people we are working on. Infrastructure also is largely, we've done a lot of cost cutting on that and keeping it under control. But should it be something more widely looked at? I agree with you.
Vipul, your 30 seconds and then I'll come to you, Ankit.
So I also agree to the basic point कि ताज महल में मकबरे ही होते हैं.
But उसे air condition करिएगा.
But very quick, see, this is a trickle down effect which will come from let us say luxury kind of cars and two wheelers. Mercedes has already started the agency model, which is on a different thought process altogether. You may not be aware, my own group company VW has started agency model in Europe for electric ID4, ID3 range of vehicles. So there are various thought processes happening across the industry to work on the infra and manpower cost. For our mass market, it will take some time because we need to be customer touch and feel happy kind of situation. I am sure going forward, agency model or something hybrid between today's dealership and agency would be the force to go with. So let's wait for the right time, but point taken, and this is the way forward. No two thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think I know the clock is clicking, and I just want to have a closing remark on the stuff. We have talked about the profit front, margin front, workshop front, infra front. I think what as a dealer I would request the OEMs, not those who my friends sitting here, but the OEMs coming who have come here, like what we fear as a dealer, we are under a banner of your name, and to be honest, it is very clear that we do fear, and that is a chapter that we think about it for saying anything. As a OEM, when we increase our volumes, then again a question mark comes that a new dealer would be appointed in our area. I would request the OEMs to help as a dealership to grow better and teach us how to manage the larger volumes and to add on multiple dealership as we require. Like as a dealership, we are a businessman, and OEMs are also a business model. So I would request the OEMs to help us to grow our dealership in a multiple way. Whether you talked about the HR practices, we talked like there are many things
to go forward and how to manage a multiple dealership operations. That would be better for us, and that would gain us better profitability in the longer run. Thank you.
So thank you, and I'm very conscious of time. So what I'll just say is that for me there are multiple takeaways here. I think first of all, congratulations to FADA for doing this first two-wheeler conclave. Second, I think there is no issue that has been listed in for this session that is not solvable if the dealership and the OEM get together and address. The third thing is that you have to look at the ecosystem as a collaborative win-win situation to grow the pie rather than a competitive thing to gain greater share of a stagnant pie. The next is that, you're a second generation dealer, right? The OEMs will also, look at it, but the second generation of dealership needs to look at it differently because your challenge is not in this room. Your challenge is by a lot of other startups who are going to take away lucrative parts of your pie and then leave you holding the can. So, you need to actually look at it, in that manner. And finally, on the demand side, right, it's a challenge because I don't think that the IC segment, ICE segment is going to grow greater than 10% year on year. And 10% electrification means that actually, while the overall two-wheeler market would grow, your market share, other than certain models, but they're small, would decline. So how do you look at a reducing kind of a thing by improving productivity, looking at different dealership practices and OEM practices to make it profitable, and look at investing in human resources and making them part of the growth story would be the way forward. Once again, I think on behalf of FADA, I'd like to thank both our guests. This is a very unique thing when you invite guests into your forum and then you question their practices. But I think it's both Aniruddha and Bipul have been game there, and they've answered all the questions there. Ankit, thank you for that, and I think back to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chenoy, and to all our guests on this panel. It was a fantastic first panel discussion that we had for the conclave. And on that note, yes, please give a huge round of applause to all our panelists here. And I'm going to request all of them to be given a bit of a token of our appreciation. Mr. Lalit Gupta, can you please come up on stage to felicitate Mr. Aniruddha Haldar? Amongst others, I'd also call Mr. Mayank Sabharwal. Sir, if you are here, please come up and help us in felicitating our guests, Mr. Bipul Chandra, Mr. Aniruddha Haldar. Yeah, can we have the memento, please? Please bring it. Yeah. Come on, gentlemen, can we please keep the claps going here? Mr. Mayank Sabharwal to felicitate Mr. Bipul Chandra, and I am going to quickly move with this and invite Mr. Sumit Kapoor on this stage to felicitate Mr. Dilip Chenoy. And Mr. Ankit Raj as well. Mr. Sumit Kapoor, can you please stay and felicitate Mr. Ankit Raj as well? Please bring the memento. My apology, there seems to be some confusion, but can we all have a photograph in the meantime? Yeah? Right, thank you so much. It was a fantastic discussion, and we all spoke about the challenges that this segment really faces in the coming decade or so, but like Mr. Chenoy said in his closing remarks, that none of those issues seem to be unsolvable, and that also really makes us move towards our next keynote address for